Hi, and welcome to this edition of Spirit of the Valley. Today I'm very excited to have someone here who comes from a different sort of background than a lot of the guests we've had, who we started with one that did athletics and had a job and a mix of both of those kinds of things. And now I'm finding it's fun to branch out and do things that are just plain good for people to know about. This is Elena. She is the manager. Is that your title, manager?
Executive Director.
Executive Director, excuse me, that sounds even better, of the Upper Valley Hostel in Hanover. A lot of you know where that is, but in case you don't, it's right next to Howe Library. And I think it's a little gem in our town that some people don't know about. They stop at Howe Library as far as their knowledge of that street. And I think it's where I wanted very much to have Elena come in and just tell us what the Upper Valley Hostel is about. I could read you their mission statement first, and then she will tell you, and I will ask her just what actually goes on over there and who it serves. And so welcome. I'm glad to have you here. I really am. Here is the mission statement from the Upper Valley Hostel. I think you'll appreciate it. We are a hostel providing home-like overnight accommodations for adults receiving treatment at our area medical services centers. We also serve family members of hospitalized patients. The Upper Valley Hospital is a 501(c)(3) nonprofit organization governed by a volunteer board of directors. The hostel operates mostly through guest fees and financial donations, and that last part I can't say strongly enough for obvious reasons, but we will repeat a little more about that and how you can be one of those donors later on. My first question is the obvious one, I think, would be how long have you been there? How it got going? I know you told me something rather interesting, that you were the model for David's house, which I think is exciting. A little bit of the background, just a little bit of how old it is and all.
Well, thank you for having me today, Judy.
It's my pleasure.
I'll start a little bit with the history of the hostel, which starts back in the mid-1970s when the Norris Cotton Cancer Center opened up. More hospital personnel realized that there was a need for a place to stay. A lot of the patients were foregoing cancer treatment because they were not able to travel or having accommodations to stay. They couldn't afford staying in a motel or hotel in the area, so they were really foregoing treatment. So community members first took patients in, and churches helped people out, but it really, as the numbers grew, it was unfeasible for them to do so. So what they did is community groups of a group of our community got together, did a feasibility study, did a whole fundraising campaign and raised money, and were able to buy a lovely old home in Hanover that was on Sargent Street. Nice. So the hostel opened its doors on November 27th in 1978. So it's been in service for almost 34 years. Right. In 1980, it actually moved to the current location, which you mentioned was right next to Howe Library. Right. It's at 17 South Street. And we've been there ever since. Our little house has 16 beds in 8 bedrooms. So some of them are most of them are shared. Yeah. We have a bathroom on every floor. The second floor has 2 bathrooms, actually, a bathroom and a half. We have a kitchen, a living room, a dining area, like a beautiful sunroom that we now call it the Hostel Cafe.
Yeah, I love that.
We've done a lot of improvements to that, so people really love it. And the amazing thing about the hostel is, especially the sunroom, is that's where a lot of the healing takes place. You know, it's
a support group. I say on steroids just because it's sort of the way people talk these days. But I mean, it's even more than that because they have more time together. They have meals together, don't they?
Correct. Yep.
Shared.
Yep.
Kitchen, shared.
So we provide breakfast food items, and some nights we provide warm dinners. Okay. Not all the time, but from the community. So it's really wonderful for them to come together. But that table, it's amazing what happens at that table. Really, I mean, we do provide a home-like environment, but we're really in reality fostering a sort of a peaceful and healing oasis between their home and the hospital.
Because there's no peace in what's going on in their lives at that moment.
Correct.
Without kind of finding a way to make that happen.
Right.
We have some pictures, by the way. You'll be interested to know we've got, I think, 4 pictures picked out, and she's trusted me. She doesn't know me very well. We've got pictures that we will show you throughout this show of that beautiful kitchen sunroom combination. I even put one in of the backyard because I thought that whole
the
garden feeling
yes,
just is
thank
so
you.
peaceful and so
Right.
lovely. There's a picture of a twin bedroom, a very good representation of what they might
Right.
see when they got there. And the living room, because there was a beautiful painting done of that living room with people in it. It was called,
Right.
I call it The Gathering, but I don't know what it was titled. But I did a community service there once with some middle schoolers, and we used to go up and clean. And so I got a good taste of it then. But I think for anyone who knows someone who is coming here, but it's going to be a real sacrifice
Right.
to do it. Can families, I guess I don't remember, can the family members stay with them there?
Of course. So some of the patients
bring
are
someone with them?
inpatient. Some of
Right.
them are outpatient.
Right.
But they certainly,
If they're out, they could
families-
bring a family member, because they
Yes.
come from far and near,
Yes.
right?
Caregivers and families are
Yeah.
welcomed as well.
Because that's what I think matters, that they still have that continuity
Yes.
during a terribly stressful
Right.
time.
Their support
But local
system.
people who have the support anyway can have someone come and stay that wouldn't see them ordinarily or wouldn't be able to
Right.
visit. So it's on the bus route,
Correct.
so
we're
there's
actually
no cost to getting there if they...
No, we're 2 miles from the hospital, and during the week, Monday through Friday, Advanced Transit runs through, so
Right.
they're able to just walk up to the end of the block and take the bus to and from the hospital for most hours. And the amazing thing in the weekends, we don't have the bus, but it's never a problem. People, again, the beauty of the hostel too is people from all different walks of life come together and find commonality, through the pain, through the sort of realness of their illness and what
Yeah.
they're struggling with, and they bond and create friendships that otherwise I think would be almost impossible outside there.
It's something you don't talk about to a lot of
Right.
people. I mean, you just keep it kind of private a lot of the time. And
Well,
here's
a lot of things-
Here's a place where you have permission to talk about anything you want, and that will let the next person see how easy it is to do, I would assume.
Right.
And people drive there so that they can drive someone up there.
So some
if they
people
want
drive
to.
there to go back to to actually the bus. The fact that people relate in wonderful ways and sort of have the bonding. In the weekends, there's never a problem really with transportation because people find each other, they befriend each other, and they help each other by giving rides back and forth to the hospital.
Maybe it was you
so.
that told me that, or someone that someone said, I've got to get up there today, but I'm not sure how. And someone else said, oh, come with us.
Yeah, no problem.
It's instantaneous bonding from what I hear.
That's right.
And I can't think of a better time for that to happen to someone, is a fellow in need that understands what you're going through. So they get, 2 meals technically, not always evening, but...
No, that evenings are not, but
That's
we do
sporadic.
provide, we get donations from the community
Yeah.
businesses, so we're able to, people can cook their own meals and prepare their own. There's always food in the cupboards, there's always food around,
Do
so
they
they're able
shop
to.
at all, or do they ask you to get things? I mean, how do they get what they would want to cook?
If they need things other than what we have, then they have to shop on their own. We don't really have a budget
Right,
in which
no,
to go out
of course not.
but we do provide things that we get donated, and we try to buy milk and eggs and sort
Basics.
of right
Bread.
for breakfast.
Yeah.
And those are
just to-
always there.
Something in the coffee is probably there.
The coffee is a
That's
big
what
yes.
I would need first thing.
And the first person out makes the coffee. That's how we keep it. So it's very homey.
So I can't reiterate enough how I was struck by this when I was working there with some kids, and it's I don't know, it's a niche that every hospital area needs. The David's House has come a long way on its own, but as you and I were talking, when it's children that are ill, somehow it resonates more deeply, I think, as far as making sure that those kids have their parents nearby. And they've never seemed to have any problem at all keeping things growing. But it is a little bit different when it isn't young children. It's just, it isn't that you feel any less compassion for an older person, but when you know that those kids are all going to Chad, it kind of pulls harder.
Of course.
And one of the things that Elena was telling me, that she's got a couple of stories here from testimonials, I would call them, but they're really more warm stories. And she asked if I would read them. I'm sure she could, but she asked me to do it, and I'd be very happy to. But this is a former guest, It has always amazed me how that silly old adage keeps coming up. Help comes when you least expect it. Since I live over an hour from DHMC, I decided to stay at the Upper Valley Hostel while I received radiation and chemotherapy. I remember my first night at the hostel. I wandered from the kitchen to the living room feeling confused, but discovered that everyone smiled at me and asked my name. I met Ellie that night, a petite, blonde-haired Swedish heroine fighting the cancer that had infiltrated her lymph system. She leapt up when she saw me and asked me if I wanted a cup of tea. Marilyn breezed through, a beauty queen in a purple turban, which covered her bald scalp. I'm going to Panda to pig out, she said. They're starting my bone marrow transplant tomorrow. It hit me like a ton of bricks. These were my people, the folks who understood me, the ones who could help me. I found real heroes here who were willing to look odds in the face and spit at them. Here was a place where I could cry and not feel like an idiot. A magic place where people hugged, unafraid, and real healing took place. There's something special about the kitchen table at the hostel. It has a simple overhead lamp, which gives the feeling of sanctuary in the midst of darkness. How many nights did I sit there listening to stories others had to tell and sharing my own? I've cried my eyes out at that table, written a book there, and comforted a mother who had just lost her daughter at that safe table. I have goosebumps with that. It's just, it sums up in the most personal, beautiful, real, honest, living way of what you are there and what you provide, what you bring out in people, what this whole, just a building can do with all the right-minded, same-minded people in it. And I think that, I would think people would be constantly writing things like that. Do they do that as they leave, or do you get these in the mail later on after they've thought about it? Or
it's a combination of both. Actually, that we have more words from former guests. You can check them out on Facebook as well.
Yep.
It's just wonderful things that people leave behind, and they write. And we have a new program now where they write thank you notes to donors. So it's amazing. It's so much more personal that I can send a thank you note to those in the community that really help us.
Keep it
and
going.
so they could feel, get the same sense of things that we hear all the time. In reality, we wouldn't be there if it wasn't for our donors and community.
Exactly.
And so
and you have a volunteer staff. You have a bunch that
we
come
do.
in.
So to sort of as a hierarchy of how it works, we have a board of directors that really are very local involved community members that help with the operation, planning of the hostel. We have 2 paid staff. So day-to-day operations I run them together with Patrick Kearney, who's the house manager, and we have 2 resident managers at night.
I was going to ask you about the scheduling, because you have to be on call.
That's right. So we're open 24 hours. 7 days a week.
Wow.
And then we have a staff of about 37 volunteers.
Wonderful.
And together, all of us trying to make this happen together with the generosity of our community. So it's really an amazing place.
Are you always looking for more volunteers?
Yes, of course. Ways to get involved.
What kind of duties?
It would be mostly evening once a month, answering the phone, making the guests feel comfortable, making them feel at home. So whatever they need, check-in process, answering the phone, and being there for them as far as support and letting them know what's in the community and so on and so forth. It's a very rewarding experience.
I would think so, because I do volunteer work, and whatever you do that's volunteer to somehow ends up feeling good, because it's helping somebody.
That's right.
Or lots of somebody's, and here is the most vulnerable population.
And a lot of times I think, I don't want to speak on behalf of volunteers, but volunteering myself so much most of my life, I think especially what I see at the hostel is that they're there to help people, but they get so much more out of it than they're actually providing from that perspective, just because they're able to witness what's happening there.
Well, you feel it right away, you feel
Yeah.
that it's helped, you feel their appreciation, you feel just plain good, because we humans ought to feel like we want to give back.
Correct. Yeah.
And those of us that aren't in their boat, my husband went through this year, but he's fine. But at that moment, that was very stressful. It was incredibly stressful. We were at home, we were fine, but it was, there's just something on your mind at all times until you get the okay.
That's right.
And you can't help that. However mindful you try to stay, you still. So I can't imagine being really far away from home, and going through this without the ability to go home and sleep in your own bed. And you make that feel as much like their own bed as you can, obviously. And I'm not jealous. I envy them for having this, because otherwise the options aren't that warm, that personable, certainly, or if you go to a motel or.
That's right.
And I think back to David's house, how it started, because he knew a kiddo that became his friend, their parents were sleeping in their car.
Yes.
And people are not maybe doing that, but they would be doing something probably close to that if they couldn't have a place to be in near their loved one. So
the story of David is an amazing story.
It is a wonderful
as well,
story.
and it's a
The fact
wonderful
that someone
place,
that age could think that far down the line and be
That's
that
right. Have a dream,
open-hearted.
and look what that dream has
Unbelievable.
become. But we do have patients and their families too. Sometimes, unfortunately, if we have to turn them away, they do end up sleeping in waiting rooms. Some of them cannot afford. The beauty of having this community is David's house is helping us as well as we help them. So if we're full, we try to stay till later at the end of the night and figure out what our census is and sort of help each other out. So we send patients from one place to the other. If one is full and we're not able to accommodate, they will help us, and the other way around. Sometimes.
Do you have other places then that you definitely have as backups? I mean, that I hadn't heard. As far as if you're full, is there some secondary spot that you always a go-to person or a go-to place?
So we check with David's house, see what their availability is. Most of the time they're full as well. But we actually have a great community sponsor in 6 South Street Hotel that is helping us to sometimes when we have overflow, instead of turning people away, they're providing hotel rooms at the same rate.
This is a brand new hotel too.
Yes.
They've been here the least amount of time and they're already.
And that as wonderful as it is, because it's really, to not turn people away, it's wonderful. Sometimes we hear too that what you said about being in a hotel or a motel, they feel comfortable. It's a luxurious hotel.
Yeah.
But they come back to the hostel and sit at the
It's not a
sunroom.
home. It's a hotel.
But it's providing
But good
lodging
for them, and good
so
for them
it's
for being the
amazing.
new neighbors in town. And I'll give them a shout out for just getting involved right away in something that is definitely needed. You're going to have spurts, I'm sure, where you're low in population, and others when you just could use 3 more houses.
Of course.
And
It really comes, when it rains, it pours. It just comes, and then
and you
other
hate to
times
say,
we have
I'm
so
sorry,
many.
we're full. But
Other
if you
times we
can
have so
find some other, any community members ever take people in? Does that ever been?
No, we don't. I'm sure there probably are, but we're not.
You haven't
we don't have an arrangement
gone in that
with
direction.
them. No, we're able to manage fairly well without turning a lot of people away. It certainly is certain days. The clinic days are full.
Yeah.
So the other thing that we've noticed is the demand is up, and the guests' capability of paying is certainly low because of the economy.
Ripples
That's
down,
right.
and you ask a donation, but even that to some people nowadays in this economy seems hard. Probably, it's minor, but it's everything's harder right now.
So we charge $15 per night
Yep.
per person, and our cost is about $50 a night, and the rest is really supplemented again by, thankfully, to our community donors and businesses
And
in
I'm
the
sure
area.
people are grateful at that price.
Of course, and we never turn anyone away if they don't
you
have.
would
if
make
they're
it
not
possible.
Completely,
And
we're waiving
like,
the fee.
like your family and mine and yours, there's a wish list at all times, and this is a place that would need anything that you would need in your house, from paper towels to stamps to bottled water, snacks, gift certificates. If they could take a card down to Walmart and get something they needed or wanted, or you wanted, Swiffers for Post-its. It's so practical. It's quite funny.
That's right.
Because
It's what you need to run a
There's nothing
household.
luxurious going on
No.
here. This is a list of things that you would be getting for your own home. So I would suggest when you are getting them for your own home that you get one for the hostel or 2 or that kind of practical. Probably nothing you wouldn't use, whatever they came up with. But the things I just listed, certainly they go through quickly, even frozen dinners or things like that. I would be putting out a wish for all of you to, first of all, go check it out. If that's,
Yes.
come and see what actually is going on in a beautiful, wonderful, warm home. But also when you come, don't come empty-handed. Come with a 12-pack of paper towel or something. Just
It's
isn't
okay
little.
even if you come,
It isn't, but it sounds little, it isn't little,
Empty-handed,
because you
no.
use that every minute of the day, and that kind
That's
of
right.
thing. So that's a wish list, just like you have in your house, but this is even more basic. I mean, a pound of coffee would be wonderful, that kind of thing. And go and have a quick peek. I mean, then you'd know how to explain it to friends and say, you ought to, they could use our help. They could use, and I'm sure you have this posted prominently somewhere where people would know what would help.
If they stop by as
Yeah,
well, we'll have
yeah.
it. Yeah, we really welcome you to stop by. It would be wonderful to sort of experience on your own that sense of home-like environment that we talk about. There's, we can sit here and talk about it and tell you all the wonderful things that are happening, but I think once you walk through the doors, you get a sense of what that is. A lot of people mention that they feel like they're at grandma's house, and it really gives them that
I get
comfortable
that.
feeling.
I do. When we went up there as community service and we were cleaning, whatever they needed done that day, but I couldn't help but sort of take in this feeling of shared, and sharing, in this case, a lot of people who wouldn't share in their own house, they want their own bed and their room and
Right.
bathroom. The sharing here is out of love and out of need.
Yep.
From people that just plain need another person to vent to or to just understand, which a well person can't quite understand, although they know that you're suffering. It's kind of like a homey, warm support group, but even more casual probably in a way. They let their hair down. They really, really let it out. What makes you feel better than that? I mean, it's liberating. So what we'll do is, and remember that list is just anything practical that you can think of that you need to run a house. That's what would be wonderfully helpful. But I can't say enough how important this place is for an awful lot of people who are in deep distress, really. And it would make their loved ones feel better if they knew the comforts, and if it would certainly make them feel better, knowing that they've got such a loving bunch of people around them all day, 24/7.
So in closing, actually, I'd like to take just 2 minutes to mention that, a lot of people, unfortunately, don't know what Upper Valley Hostel is because of our name. So we're actually considering changing the name. People assume that it's just a hostel, providing travels,
Come off the
lodging,
Appalachian
but
Trail and
that's right.
hunker
So it
down.
is sort of a little secret spot because of that, and we certainly do need more of the community support, but we're really open to hear what you think would fit. Knowing our mission statement, you can go online and also read on the website more specifically what we do or be reminded by it, and sort of tell us your thoughts. We'd love to hear it. The other component I wanted to talk about is, again, we just provide lodging, but so
Right.
much more sort of like a ripple effect of our guests by providing affordable accommodations, that we're empowering patients to be self-reliant, so they feel independent. They feel that they're able to take care on their own.
Exactly.
It really saves a lot of cost and exhaustion from them traveling back and forth. Not to mention to get the impact it has on the environment as far as footprint and
Exactly.
the other component in long term, really, by people being well and being able to be independent, it really is giving them a different quality of life, and it's really cutting a lot of the healthcare costs. So there's so much involved into just providing this home-like environment
Exactly.
for $15.
Oh
a
yeah,
night a
I mean, it
person.
doesn't
It's just
stop there,
amazing.
certainly, but that has
Beyond
a lasting impression too, just that
That's
visit
right.
there. However long they're there, I'm sure they take that with them. But you're right, it gets them feeling better about themselves and better that if they are surviving, and we all hope they are.
That's right. Well,
And-
but it's
and
the practical
it's the
reasons
practic-
beyond the
exactly.
compassion and the soulful, rewarding
Exactly.
experience that, and the healing that happens in the place as well.
They can be on their own,
Yep.
and they're doing
amazing.
it there. It's sharing and helping, but they're doing it themselves.
When you feel so vulnerable and you are ill, really having some sort of control of your life, it's so important because you really feel everything
You
else
lose
is out of control. That's
Everyone
right.
else is telling you what's going to happen to you now and tomorrow and the next day. And I have a friend whose son just finished chemo for brain cancer, and he had so little control, and he was 21. I mean, he'd been in college and had that independence, and suddenly it was taken away from him. And they finally let him decide when he felt ready to go back to school after his chemo. And he knew himself well enough to know that, well, not right this minute, but when he said, I'm ready, he went. And he had his control back. And at a 21-year-old, you don't want to give it up to mommy again. And he had to, because Mom was the one that was going to get him through this. So I hope you've gotten a good picture here of what we are trying to express in what this Upper Valley Hostel does. And again, that name, it isn't a hostel as you hear about for travelers and hikers. It's a, as you said, there's a good reason to probably think about a different name.
Of course.
To explain it in a short 2-word name or something, but it's right next to the Howe Library. Everyone knows where that is, and if you want to just peek, they want you to, because you'll get a much better sense of what we've just talked about. And the pictures that you'll see inserted throughout this half hour are marvelous pictures. They do show you, I think, a good feeling of what those rooms are and how cozy it is. But go in and walk through it yourself. That nothing beats that as far as coming away with the right impression. That's a fast half hour, ma'am. That you did a beautiful job. It's a great thing to get out there. As I said, I think so many people right in Hanover aren't really familiar with what it does because they haven't needed it. And
for those of us that have helped us, I really want to take the opportunity to say thank you and how much we appreciate it.
That's great.
We wouldn't be able to do what we do without you. So
and
thank you.
That's you out there. You very generous.
That's right.
Upper Valley is a very generous place because there are a lot of people that are looking for their dollars these days, more than ever. And here's one for your list if it isn't already on it. But Hanover. Not Hanover, just Hanover. The Upper Valley is a very generous giving place, and a lot of them now I know are keeping their charitable giving local. That's what they've chosen to do at a time like this. And so we urge you to get involved, and you'll have the addresses you need on the screen, and take advantage of the chance to go in and peek at this. It's a wonderful little spot, and I think you'll feel better for having done it. I know you will. And you'll get a really good glimpse of what goes on. You might even meet a couple of really neat people while you're in there and chat with them. They love it. They love the exchanges. So thank you so much for this. I think it'll be wonderful for people to hear more than they already have about a place like this that is so important, but so not hidden, but not as out there as some. And I think it needs more exposure, and I'm delighted to be able to help with that. So,
well, thank you for the opportunity.
I'm
It's
so glad you
wonderful to
came.
be here and to
I'm
talk
so
about it.
glad you came, Elena. If there are any questions for either of us, just please ask us. And in the meantime, I will say thank you again, because you were a joy to have on. And I will let you know on Facebook, and then I will let Elena know as well when this will air, so that every one of you that gets this, and if you have friends that don't get it, it gets up on the website shortly after it's been, put on the schedule, so they can get at it through an internet connection.
great.
So anyone far and near, people at home far away from your visitors can see it too. So I'll let you know when we're going to be on, and thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you.